Unit 1. The Many Forms of Love.
Essential question.
How does love change and challenge us?
Background. The ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle believed in friendship of virtue. This rare bond is called philia, or brotherly love. It is based on a shared desire to do what's best for the other person. This type of friendship can have wide-ranging effects. The example set by such friends can help the whole community flourish. To the Greeks, Damon and Pythias presented a perfect model of friendship. Their loyalty and faithfulness demonstrate ideals that can benefit both individuals and society. Close reading focus. As you read, focus on the actions of Damon and Pythias. What personal beliefs and ideals do their actions reveal? Damon and Pythias, retold by William F. Russell, ed. D.
Damon and Pythias were two noble young men who lived on the island of Sicily in a city called Syracuse. They were such close companions and were so devoted to each other that all the people of the city admired them as the highest examples of true friendship. Each trusted the other so completely that nobody could ever have persuaded one that the other had been unfaithful or dishonest, even if that had been the case. Now it happened that Syracuse was, at that time, ruled by a famous tyrant named Dionysius, who had gained the throne for himself through treachery, and who from then on flaunted his power by behaving cruelly to his own subjects and to all strangers and enemies who were so unfortunate as to fall into his clutches. This tyrant, Dionysius, was so unjustly cruel that once, when he awoke from a restless sleep, during which he dreamt that a certain man in the town had attempted to kill him, he immediately had that man put to death. It happened that Pythias had quite unjustly been accused by Dionysius of trying to overthrow him, and for this supposed crime of treason, Pythias was sentenced by the king to die. Try as he might, Pythias could not prove his innocence to the king's satisfaction, and so, all hope now lost, the noble youth asked only for a few days' freedom so that he could settle his business affairs and see to it that his relatives would be cared for after he was executed. Dionysius, the hard-hearted tyrant, however, would not believe Pythias's promise to return, and would not allow him to leave unless he left behind him a hostage, someone who would be put to death in his place if he should fail to return within the stated time. Pythias immediately thought of his friend Damon, and he unhesitatingly sent for him in this hour of dire necessity, never thinking for a moment that his trusty companion would refuse his request. Nor did he, for Damon hastened straight away to the palace, much to the amazement of King Dionysius, and gladly offered to be held hostage for his friend, in spite of the dangerous condition that had been attached to this favor. Therefore, Pythias was permitted to settle his earthly affairs before departing to the land of the shades, while Damon remained behind in the dungeon, the captive of the tyrant Dionysius. After Pythias had been released, Dionysius asked Damon if he did not feel afraid, for Pythias might very well take advantage of the opportunity he had been given and simply not return at all, and then he, Damon, would be executed in his place. But Damon replied at once with a willing smile.
"There is no need for me to feel afraid, O king, since I have perfect faith in the word of my true friend, and I know that he will certainly return before the appointed time, unless, of course, he dies or is held captive by some evil force. Even so, even should the noble Pythias be captured and held against his will, it would be an honor for me to die in his place."
Such devotion and perfect faith as this was unheard of to the friendless tyrant. Still, though he could not help admiring the true nobility of his captive, he nevertheless determined that Damon should certainly be put to death should Pythias not return by the appointed time. And, as the fates would have it, by a strange turn of events, Pythias was detained far longer in his task than he had imagined. Though he never for a single minute intended to evade the sentence of death to which he had been so unjustly committed, Pythias met with several accidents and unavoidable delays. Now his time was running out, and he had yet to overcome the many impediments that had been placed in his path. At last he succeeded in clearing away all the hindrances, and he sped back the many miles to the palace of the king, his heart almost bursting with grief and fear that he might arrive too late. Meanwhile, when the last day of the allotted time arrived, Dionysius commanded that the place of execution should be readied at once, since he was still ruthlessly determined that if one of his victims escaped him, the other should not. And so, entering the chamber in which Damon was confined, he began to utter words of sarcastic pity for the foolish faith, as he termed it, that the young man of Syracuse had in his friend. In reply, however, Damon merely smiled, since, in spite of the fact that the 11th hour had already arrived, he still believed that his lifelong companion would not fail him. Even when, a short time later, he was actually led out to the site of his execution, his serenity remained the same. Great excitement stirred the crowd that had gathered to witness the execution, for all the people had heard of the bargain that had been struck between the two friends. There was much sobbing and cries of sympathy were heard all around as the captive was brought out, though he himself somehow retained complete composure even at this moment of darkest danger. Presently, the excitement grew more intense still, as a swift runner could be seen approaching the palace courtyard at an astonishing speed, and wild shrieks of relief and joy went up as Pythias, breathless and exhausted, rushed headlong through the crowd and flung himself into the arms of his beloved friend, sobbing with relief that he had, by the grace of the gods, arrived in time to save Damon's life. This final exhibition of devoted love and faithfulness was more than even the stony heart of Dionysius the tyrant could resist. As the throng of spectators melted into tears at the companion's embrace, the king approached the pair and declared that Pythias was hereby pardoned and his death sentence cancelled. In addition, he begged the pair to allow him to become their friend, to try to be as much a friend to them both as they had shown each other to be. Thus did the two friends of Syracuse, by the faithful love they bore to each other, conquer the hard heart of a tyrant king, and in the annals of true friendship, there are no more honored names than those of Damon and Pythias, for no person can do more than be willing to lay down his life for the sake of his friend.
Discuss. A foil is a character whose qualities contrast strongly with those of another character. Damon and Pythias are foils for Dionysius. Their virtuous actions help reveal the king's cruelty. With a partner, discuss ways in which Dionysius's actions distinctly contrast with those of the two friends. What do the contrasts reveal about each character?